Right guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to show you how I make these bases, which is what is seen on my Beast Claw Raiders. It's very easy. Ideally you do need an airbrush and a number of bits and pieces which I'll post a link to in the description. But as you can see here, we've got a blank base and we've also got the finished effect. So there's some Valhalla Blizzard on there, some grass tufts, some actual trees, and a little bit of slate that you can probably pick up from your neighbour's garden, as long as they're not watching. So I'm going to take you through step by step, and this is the first time I've done voiceover work on my videos, so I hope it works out okay in the end. Let us know what you think of it. So the first thing we're going to do is get a bit of slate. Ideally you still want something a little bit flat so that when you glue your models onto it, you can still get a nice flat surface to glue your models onto. And what I'm going to glue it on with is Gorilla Glue, because it's brilliant. Once it's dried, I've then primed it up. Obviously you don't need to see the steps of that, but this is just a pound shop grey primer, and I've covered the whole thing. So the first colour that we're going to use is Vallejo Game Air Magic Blue. This is for the base course for the water. So what you want to do is go right in all the cracks and crevices, right under the rock, because this is the darkest shade of blue that we're going to be using. So make sure you get right under there. Don't worry if you get some on the rocks, because it just adds to the effect as well. But as you can see, I'm tucking right under the rock here as well. So the next stage is pretty much doing the same thing again, but we're going to use electric blue. And instead of going right under the rocks, we're going to do just the bits that you can see as if you were looking top down. So kind of just about half of what we've already covered. Don't worry about getting on the edge of the base. You can see that it's not too great on camera because obviously I've got a blue background because I've done loads of bases now. But you can see there that the edges are a nice light blue compared to the bits that are right under the rocks. You can see it quite easily there, hopefully. Okay, so for the next bit we're going to use Vallejo White. It's just the Model Air variation. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this in with the electric blue in the airbrush. So I've poured the excess electric blue out and a bit of white in, and as you can see here, I'm just giving it a good mix by giving it a bit of blowback with the air. I'm just literally going to cover half of the area that we covered in the electric blue. It's a little difficult to see here, again because of the blue background, so I've learned my lesson for next time I film a tutorial like this. But yeah, and there we go. So you can see there actually the gradient, but now I'm going to use glitter sand, which we found in Home Bargains for £2. It's basically crushed glass. I'm pouring a little bit just in the lid here, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this to kind of make like an ice effect. So a little bit of super glue around the edges of the rock, kind of just leading down to the water's edge. I use cheap pound shop super glue rather than your expensive Gorilla Glue. This is quite watery, so be careful not to spill it everywhere. But yeah, I'm literally just squirting it in under the rocks here and around the edge. As you can see there, it spreads out quite quickly, and then just sprinkle some of the sand on it like that. That wasn't a great attempt, but if you sprinkle it right on like that, and then even if you pour a tiny bit of super glue just over the top of it like that, just helps secure it in place, and you can probably put a second layer of crystal on top of it as well, depending on how deep you want to go with the ice effect that I'm trying to achieve. And just give it a little tap off, and there you go. So the next step is I'm just using some cheap white acrylic paint that I picked up from the range, and I'm just literally going to dry brush the rocks. I probably should have done this before adding the crystal, but I was concentrating so hard on trying to do the video. So all we're doing is, because of most of the grey is still there on the rocks itself, just give it a nice little dry brush, pick up all of the details. I'm going quite heavy with this one, but you can do an extra one just to pick off the edges as well. And because the blue's there as well, it kind of helps fit in with the tones. You can see there I'm just doing the edges a little bit. as well. But yeah, the blue undertones just kind of fit and blended in with the whole icy winter theme. So here's the next step. This is an actual piece of tree that I snapped off a bush in my backyard. You can go big, you can go small, but basically I just used the clippers, chopped off that massive branch, and just using small pieces. Now on this I have used my Gorilla Glue because I really need it to set and stick in place. Like I said, you can go big, you can go small, it depends on how much branch you want on. There we go. Okay, so the next step is Vallejo water texture, and I'm just going to apply this with a brush on all of the blue areas, just basically to try and make it look a bit icy. And there you go, you can see it's nice and thick. It does set, it does take a little while to set, but basically just tucking it right in under there. It's okay to get it on the edges of the rocks and right up to the crystal as well, and it just kind of helps. I don't know what the name is, but where the water bevels up at the edge of the rocks and the crystals and stuff. Make sure you get it right in under there, under the rocks as well, and all the way around the sides. Depending on how thick you put it on, you might need to reapply this and do 2 layers of it. I actually went back and did a second layer after this, which I didn't put on video, as I felt one just wasn't quite enough. And there we go, that's all set. So next up is Valhalla Blizzard. This is a Games Workshop texture paint, and I'm using a spatula from McDonald's, coffee spatula, and just apply this around the edges of the rocks. This one is a little bit thicker than Valhalla Blizzard because I actually ran out a bit. So I used Army Painter Snow with a little bit of PVA and flow improver, but it's basically the same. And I'm sorry about the camera going out of focus here, it was having a hard time being zoomed in and focusing, but you can get the general idea that you're just applying the snow to the edges. You can put it on the top of the rocks, you can put it on the top of the tree and everything on there as well. And there we go, it's back in focus. But yeah, depending on how much snow you want, I kind of go for about 30% coverage, because obviously you don't want to take all the details away from the rock, you don't want to take away from the tree. But yeah, the Valhalla Blizzard is a fantastic textured paint. It is a little expensive, but it's absolutely worth it for the finished effects when you get it. It does spread out quite nicely. And there you go. So we're almost finished with this, but what we want to do is add some grass tufts. This is Games Workshop. I'm forgetting the name of it, but Army Painter do a number of different winter tufts and everything as well. And again, you don't want too many of these. 1 or 2 is more than sufficient. But I'm using my Gorilla Glue to super glue this to the rock. When I actually get one pulled off, I think the one I pulled off was a little bit big, so I actually cut it in half. But the Army Painter ones in particular are quite small and fit just nice. I've gone for a very kind of almost spring but still very yellow kind of feel for it, to represent obviously the frozen wastelands and stuff that the beast claws and the ogres are treading across. But yeah, you can put 1 or 2 on there. Again, it's just about trying to find the right balance between the snow, the crystals, the rock, the branches, the grass. There's a lot going on in these bases, and you don't want to overemphasize one or the other. Okay, so lastly we've got, we're going to rim the base with a Baden black. Now, some people might want to leave the blue, but I find that actually painting the edge black really makes the water pop. So I'm just using the Baden black here, or you can use, you know, whatever black or colour you see fit. But I feel like the black definitely was the one that made the blue stand out and pop the most, especially with the white contrast of the snow on there as well. And there we go, there is the finished article. The ogre at the front that you see there is on the base that we've just made. At the same time though, I also did the other bases, so we've got the butcher on one there and the tyrant in the background as well as a banner bearer. But basically it's quite quick, effective and pretty easy to do these bases. It doesn't take long to do them, and I did an entire army of ogres in a couple of hours tops. But yeah, I think they look pretty cool.